Donald Trump has denounced you, my friend. Donald Trump condemns the Proud Boys, white supremacists, in Fox News interview. After days of appearing to equivocate on the matter, U.S. leader says, "Let me be clear. I condemn the KKK. I condemn white supremacists. I condemn Proud Boys. I've said it many times. Let me be clear again. I condemn the KKK," Trump said Thursday night, referring to the Klan. "I condemn all white supremacists. I condemn the Proud Boys," referring to the extreme right quasi-militia that has affiliations with anti-Semitism and white supremacists. The president said his condemnation would be ignored by the fake media. Trump in the first presidential debate with Joe Biden failed to condemn white supremacists. Well, I think it's actually, I'm going to stop right there and say it's incorrect. He did say sure 3 times, although I wouldn't call it a very strong denunciation. I think it's fair to point out Trump has denounced white supremacy numerous times, and it's kind of absurd to ask him over and over again. But following this, during the debate, he said, "Proud Boys, stand back and stand by." I believe was that the quote?
That was the quote.
So we'll start with that. There were some messages that were put out of, I think it was like Joe Biggs. Joe Biggs is a Proud Boy?
Yes.
And you guys were celebrating.
Of course we were celebrating.
Well, didn't Joe Biggs say something? Correct me if I'm wrong. He said he's essentially, been giving you the green light to go, smash people up or something like that.
So Joe has been known to be somebody that says things. He got banned for saying like death to Antifa, and he's a 2-time Purple Heart recipient. It doesn't mean that he could say things, but he's a firebrand. And when you said, actually, before I get into that, when you said that quote, where's that? What news outlet was that from that quoted the president on saying the denounce thing?
The one I'm reading right now?
Yeah.
It's the Times of Israel.
Okay. I find it funny that they cut it off there. Now, the president, unequivocally, to me, he denounced the Proud Boys, right? But there was a quote that he said, that's not the end quote of what he said. He said, "I denounce the KKK, I denounce white supremacy, I denounce the Proud Boys. I don't know who they are, but I denounce that," was what the president said. And instantly I started getting calls from the media, and people were asking, how do you feel about the president denouncing you? And as a matter of fact, like, I sat back and I was objective about it, and I'm like, a lot of people wanted me to say, F the president, forget it, he threw us under the bus or whatever. The fact is that the Proud Boys have never needed the president to either avow or disavow or denounce us. We've always been who we are, unapologetic about it. And I think that should not change my standing. It shouldn't change like how I feel about somebody or his policy. I didn't feel, there's a lot of times that I disagreed with the president. I disagreed with the president on bump stocks. I disagreed with the president with the Dakota Access Pipeline. I disagreed with the president on numerous things. And just because I disagree with him here, because I don't think he has all the facts or had all the facts when he said that, when he said he denounced us, it doesn't change my support for not only the president, but my values as a whole. I'm not going to jump ship. I'm not going to go, hey, I'm pro Joe Biden now because the president denounces. I don't care about that. And actually, the guys didn't. And I was checking our chats right after the president was denounced. I'm like, man, these guys are like having a ball. They're like, oh, well, we should change our name. Instead of Proud Boys, let's call ourselves the Denounce Boys. And like, these guys can make a joke out of anything. They don't need somebody. We don't hold the president on a pedestal. I've been supporting the president since day one, but that doesn't mean that we hold like one person as an authoritarian figure here. This whole thing's an entire movement with different facets. So when the president said, let's go back to the debate, the actual debate, that the fact that we got mentioned at the first debate for us was exciting. I was with my family. I'm watching TV, and they start talking about Portland. I'm like, no, he's not going to say it. He's not. I'm like on the edge of my seat. And then Biden was the one that said it, and we were excited, right? So I put on my Parler post. I went ahead and I put standing by and Biggs as always, and he actually corrected that and cleared the record on what he said. And we had fun with it. It took a little while for like the adrenaline to rush off, to really make for me to become objective and say, well, this isn't the president. This isn't an endorsement of the Proud Boys by the president. It wasn't. The president was asked a very pointed question. He was asked about militias. He was asked about white supremacy. And when Biden stuck his nose in and said, Proud Boys, the president said, and he was actually answering part of Chris Wallace's question, which was to tell these groups to stand down. I don't know why Chris Wallace thought that this guy is like the president of white supremacy and militias. But he was, I think it was also part of a gaffe that the president had at the time. And he said, stand back, stand by.
Yeah.
Now, if I want to break that down, the stand back part, the stand back, like you said, and I agree with you, we should stand back and let the police do their job, right? And we've stood back many times. We stood back 3 days before that on Saturday. We stood back and we let cops do their jobs. We had a cool little barbecue. We had like fireworks, a big giant American flag. And then the more controversial part is the stand by, you know, and everybody was like, oh, yep. What did he mean by stand by?
And the way he said it, stand back and stand by.
Yeah. Like we're like some type of, like the media picked it up like we're some type of militia, or like we're waiting, and they took it because they said that he refused to say if he would accept the election results, and they think that we're like a force that's ready to pounce when that happens.
Can I just point out the absurdity, having seen Proud Boys and having seen, say, like the Oath Keepers or the 3%ers or like, you know, actual militias, or at least, you know, militia type individuals, the absurdity of, you know, when you see groups like the Oath Keepers or 3%ers, they're wearing armor, they've got, you know, tactical gear, they've got rifles, and the Proud Boys are wearing those, you know, Fred Perry or whatever. Is Fred Perry, is that what it's called?
It is Fred Perry.
Polo shirts. Yeah. And they're, you know, this is what I often say is, there's a lot of things. The Proud Boys are a lot of things. You can criticize them for a lot of things, but if the Proud Boys say they're having a rally and they have their rally and Antifa doesn't show up, then the Proud Boys get drunk and they go home and nothing happens.
Yes.
If Antifa shows up, then fights, and it's usually Antifa coming, and that's why that's where the earlier criticism came in with, like, if you go to Antifa's place to hold a rally. But I want to ask you, what's your stance on Dakota Access Pipeline?
I disagreed with them because I believe that, and I think I even disagree with people that were against the Dakota Access Pipeline also. I think personally, as an individual liberty, I don't think that a pipeline, they should take away property from, I don't care if they were indigenous people. I don't care where they were from. To me, they were Americans. And they were taking away property from Americans to basically give it to a corporation is really what it was. And to me, that was completely wrong, and that shouldn't have happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but would that put you more in alignment with these, you know, leftist protesters saying no DAPL?
If that puts me in alignment, then by all means, fine. I see it as a constitutional issue where the government's coming in and seizing property.
Eminent domain.
It sounds like you're anti-fascist.
Yes. And right, they have all these cool words. I hate that.
I know.
Semantic arguments.
They're like, well, you're anti-Antifa. You know what that means?
Uh-huh.
No, that doesn't mean I'm a fascist, dude. It's not. And liberals, you know, that's also like a really cool word. It's like liberty.
Well, I got to clarify something. I was told that Antifa just means anti-fascist. So if you oppose fascism, you are Antifa. Is that correct?
It used to.
Yes.
Now it's a group.
Oh, come on. Don't label me right now.
No, you're not Antifa.
Don't label me right now.
You know where I'm going with
this?
Go
ahead. Spit it out.
Do the Proud Boys reject fascism?
Yes. I just said it like 15 minutes ago.
Right.
I denounce fascism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are the Proud Boys anti-fascist?
Can I cuss so they can beep it out?
No, don't do it.
Yes. Technically, yes. The Proud Boys are anti-fascist.
Only technically.
It's because we're anti anything big government. We're not anti-government. That's another thing that people got confused. We're not anti-government. We're for minimal government.
Anti-authoritarian.
I'm sorry, but based on Joe Biden's logic, the Proud Boys are an anti-fascist organization.
Well, based on Joe Biden's logic, he also said that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he called me a white supremacist.
Good stuff.
So to him, look, I give him the benefit of the doubt. To him, it makes sense in his world because I am not black.
I just can't, you know, I don't want to say the guy's name, but there's a very high-profile left-wing activist who is like a Black Lives Matter activist who's not actually black,
yeah.
but he says he is, and he called me a neo-Nazi.
Oh.
So I tweeted, everyone's like hitting me up. They're like, did you see this dude's got 1 million followers? He said Tim Pool is a white supremacist. And I was like, the dude's whiter than I am. So I just tweeted, the dude's whiter than me. It's the weirdest thing. I can't stand it. I grew up living in this world where, I was told we won that fight. Race didn't matter. The civil rights, Martin Luther King Jr., all that good stuff, discrimination, it was illegal. It still exists. Racism's still a problem, but we've won that fight, and now we have the law on our side. I grew up with people of a bunch of different racial backgrounds. We even had some immigrant. We had one kid was from Poland. He was an immigrant. One kid, Hispanic, spoke Spanish. We had some Asian immigrants. We had some people who were various mixed race, and it never occurred to us. We did have one kid who would call everybody by their racial slur, but it was like a South Park era thing, And so to us, it was actually kind of funny because we were all equally insulted. But I grew up thinking like none of this actually matters, and that took that power away. And it wasn't until we started seeing the rise of this left, the identitarian, the intersectional leftists, where all of a sudden now you have to you have to explain what your race is. You have white people claiming they're black and then insulting non-white people as white supremacists. You've got white people calling Candace Owens, a black woman, a white supremacist, calling a Jewish man, Ben Shapiro, a Nazi. Mm-hmm. It's just, nothing seems to make sense anymore. And I don't know what their goal is in this, but to throw it back to Joe Biden, like he said, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. And then he said, you are a white supremacist.
I think when people become Puritans, right? Because that's what we're fighting. We're fighting when the American Revolution started. We're fighting Puritans. They were trying to tax our sin. So they've become, and now in 2020, they've become such Puritans that they're infighting, like you said, like these BLM groups are ratting out the Antifa groups because they've made this like ecosystem of like perfection. And a perfect example is there's a researcher that researches Proud Boys, right? I'm not going to mention her by name. And she's done like all this CV paperwork and all this research on the Proud Boys and how we're fascists and stuff like that. And then come to find out that in her application for school, she put like she's African American and got like a scholarship or something from there. And when her friends found out and said, and then she had been telling everybody that she's like Italian, Sicilian, right? Which
the Moors.
Yeah. But they like hit her so hard that they forced an apology out of her. And actually now her research is worthless. So this Puritan thing, they eat each other alive, and they have been eating each other alive. And I think it's great entertainment. I think it's some of these things you do have to just sit back and just watch them.
It's almost like a zombie apocalypse when the zombies have finally like eaten everybody. There's no one left to eat, so they got to eat themselves. Mm-hmm. When cancel culture was coming after everybody and they canceled everybody in sight, they started going after dead people. Like I don't know if you saw Bill Burr's SNL monologue. Yeah. He's like, they're trying to cancel John Wayne. Dude's been dead since like the 70s or something. He's like, well, they got to do something. Can you believe what he said? No, he's not since the 70s, but he was like, can you believe what John Wayne said in 1970? It's like, yeah, that's what people used to say. Yeah. It was a really, really great monologue in my opinion, because he kind of took the piss out of everybody. He insulted everybody a little bit, but he specifically calls out cancel culture and then got offensive with his comedy. He did it perfectly to where he wasn't directly targeting the group, but he kind of was poking fun at certain groups, and they start calling for his cancellation.
Of course.
But I feel like we've already come to this point where, they've canceled all they can cancel. What are they going to do?
They cannot. There is nothing that you can cancel me on. Absolutely nothing. Yes, you can't cancel me on anything anymore. I've been canceled. Look, listen. You're banned from everything. This might take an hour for me to actually process all of these. But I'm kidding. But I've been canceled off of the big 3 social media platforms, and multiple times. I'm on my 19th Twitter account. I just made another one today. PayPal, Airbnb. I never used Airbnb, by the way. Huh. I just use it to browse properties, and they banned me for hate speech. I have the screenshot of the email. Coinbase, which is crypto. Coinbase Commerce. Chase Bank, my bank. I work with Project Veritas, and we uncovered that Chase Bank deleted my account and I was doing business with them even before they were Chase Bank.
I actually covered that. I got leaked an email from somebody who worked at the bank.
Yeah.
that they terminated so I gotta be careful here. It's been a while since I covered this story, but I was sent a bunch of private information. I released only a little bit of it, and it seemed to me that they had banned you out of a fear of bad public relations, bad PR.
Yes.
And so that was it.
And that's what they do. They make a PR nightmare for these big companies. They get like on their Twitter and they hammer their Twitter and they probably don't want to cancel me, but they're like, we don't want the PR nightmare, and they take me off. But the craziest one was, it was like 2 weeks ago. They banned me off MailChimp, right?
What?
Which is normal because MailChimp does ban conservatives all the time from sending emails. But I had a very unique situation. So I was thinking about getting MailChimp. So I added their website extension to my website, right? So I never got around to creating an account. I just had the extension. And you have to put like your license number in so it works or whatever. And I just had it on my website, and Antifa went ahead and saw the CSS code on my website that I had MailChimp, and they started banging on MailChimp's door. Hey, you got to deplatform the fascist. Well, MailChimp responded and said that they have canceled my account for a terms of service violation. I never had a MailChimp account. Like, they virtue signaled in order to get the mob to calm down. And the same thing happened with PayPal.
Wait. They claimed that they banned your account?
Yes.
And you didn't have one?
I didn't have one.
That's a false statement of fact.
Yeah, and they put it on a tweet.
That's interesting. I think that might be clear-cut defamation.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on a couple of things right now. MailChimp is probably there, but it's at the bottom of the barrel when we're thinking about things. But I'm gonna go after. We and I are going to go after all these corporations. You can't donate to the Proud Boys. You can't just go to our website and be like, oh, I want to give them $100. We're pretty much, I think that we're going to keep it that way for a very long time. We're self-funded. No matter where I go, I make sure that nobody pays for my stuff. So nobody says, hey, well, I paid for this or I paid for that. And that's the same thing with all Proud Boys. But like these lawsuits, since we're self-funded, like people are like, oh, well, why didn't you sue Chase? Why didn't you sue this or why didn't you sue that? Well, we don't have the money to do it right now, but I think Joe Biden has given us an opening. To go ahead and push these.
What is your website?
ProudBoysUSA.com and 1776.shop. Well, you can't donate to Proud Boys, but we sell merchandise through 1776.shop. And that's like the only way that you could, but you can't like directly donate. You can't that money goes nowhere.
Do you sell that shirt?
Yeah, actually, yes. I actually printed this shirt because I was to get on this podcast, and
I like it.
But yeah, I'll have that on there too as of tomorrow. But one of our main tenets is glorify the entrepreneur, and we believe that if we're gonna get money out of something, we're gonna sell something. We're gonna sell a product. We're gonna sell a service or things like that. And that's one of the main reasons why I joined the Proud Boys. It's the entrepreneurship. I believe that, and Killer Mike is the one that has this T-shirt line, and I love the saying on it. It says, "Kill your masters," right? And already, obviously, the government's overreaching or whatever, but another master that everybody has in their life is their boss. And I feel like you should start by getting a job and learning the ropes, but I think that you should want to build something for yourself. And that's why I joined. I joined because I was already that person, and I felt like I needed to strengthen, and I think iron sharpens iron. I learned a lot from just hanging around the guys at the bar.
So here's my last question before we go to Super Chats. With Gavin's history of bombastic, threatening, or offensive things he said, and he's gone way over the line. And with the history of the Proud Boys and the early on mistakes, why keep using the name that's been smeared and tainted and has this past in these associations? Why not just do something different, make a different group, get rid of all of these things explicitly?
Because why would we want to play their game? Why would we want to play on their battlefields and be like, oh, well, they say that this name's bad, so let's change it. That to me is bending a knee. That to me is like bending to the mob that has labeled us all these things that have been false. Like I said before, we're not everybody's cup of tea, but this isn't about everybody. This is about like us, and us is as a brotherhood. We put our God, if you're a religious man, our family and our country, and then comes a brotherhood as an auxiliary thing. But that doesn't mean that any of those are something that we're willing to sacrifice just to have a PR stunt. We don't care. It doesn't matter if the president denounces us a million times. If the mob comes after us, it doesn't matter how many articles that people write about us. We've built this organic thing that hasn't been done before. Many groups have failed. They have too much of a militant structure. We're a very loose structure. We're a very fun. The only way that this thing can die is if we suck the oxygen out of the room, all right? And we take out all the fun that it has. We have fun with each other, and I don't see that dying off anytime soon.
I was thinking it's kind of like an example of brotherhood is one way you put it, but like giving men meaning. It doesn't have to be men really, but giving people meaning in today's culture. You were talking earlier about how great it would be if you could highlight the conversations that people have across the aisle, like at a rally when the people from Antifa speak with the people from Proud Boys and they communicate. Like Jordan Peterson had a great viral video where he was communicating with students that disagreed with them, and they were yelling, and he was just calmly communicating for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And he also is focused on giving people meaning. So I see this through line of, and I think that Antifa, those people are finding meaning in what they're doing, and that we're lacking that in culture these days. I don't know why, maybe too much social media, but why meaning has gone astray for young people or for even adults maybe, and that this is a type of thing that gives people meaning.
Well, so I'm gonna tell you, I don't think Gavin, I think in the literal sense he founded the Proud Boys. But I think he actually found the Proud Boys. And what I mean by that is, to him, it was a joke. I mean, I saw when he went on Rogan and he said it was just some stupid thing from a musical, and he was making fun of like, oh yeah, you can be a Proud Boy too. But I think what he did was he lit the torch for some kind of fraternity. Young men, no core group, no ideology, no mission, no purpose. And so in a way, there's a similarity between that and say Antifa, in that I believe Antifa is the left's version of this. That you have a bunch of people with no purpose, student debt, no mission, no goal in life. They have no idea what they're doing. And so they're indoctrinated into extremist communism, revolution, destruction, rage, violence. And then Gavin gave space to a bunch of young men to punch each other while naming breakfast cereals and getting drunk. Yes. And that's all a lot of these dudes wanted, was just hang out, feel masculine, and, crack jokes and just not have to worry too much. So I feel like whatever it is you guys represent could have been something else. It could have been called something else. It could have been founded by somebody else. And Gavin just happened to be there at the right time. And that actually ultimately leads to a lot of the ease. I'll call them vulnerabilities, very obvious things that are critiqued and denounced and denied and things like that in the media. But that's why I asked, why not do something different? I understand your answer, but just to, make my point is, you've got a group of men who you say don't want fascism, don't want authoritarianism. You want to kind of do your thing. You're proud of your country. And that could be a regular old drinking club that could escape the political connotations of what the Proud Boys name carries.
I agree. But the thing is, we feel like celebrating stuff is what it started, right? And the name is actually, it's a good conversation starter. Imagine he thought of like this really gnarly name, like the Patriots of death, or some, I don't know what a cool name would be, but like it's a cool conversation starter. And it isn't about the name, it isn't about the cereals, it isn't about that. It's about like the dude next to you, and just getting out of the house. It's a family thing, right? The biggest thing about Proud Boys is the pro-family part of it. It's making, like I said, making better men, and I think that we have. And I think we've done that in a funny way. And I think that we've left an imprint in history. We have done something monumental. A small group of guys that started out as a joke have made this monumental change. And whether people like to see it as a positive change or a negative change, that's up to them. I'm not the arbiter of that or not, but I know that I love my guys. I know that I have, these guys are hardworking Americans. These guys are carpenters, plumbers, police officers, elected officials. I mean, they come from all walks of life. And you know what they don't deserve? They don't deserve the crap that they get from the media. But you know what? At the same time, if they get it, they turn around and they make the best of it. And that's why I love this.
I think whatever we get in history in the future, it's going to be real weird because the media is so broken. Mm-hmm. I think Wikipedia is the easiest example of how the media's fracturing and dissolution, I guess, is going to affect how we keep record of historical events. You have on Wikipedia, they will use any blog by a 22-year-old intern who wrote some nonsense with no sources, and they'll consider it fact.
Yep.
And that makes Wikipedia completely, I'll put it this way. The scientific articles, yeah, they have scientific and academic journals. But now we're getting to a point where the pages don't even link together properly because one definition on one page is a leftist one versus a right-wing one, and it's all breaking apart as we have these like two different worldviews now, coming into focus. The leftist worldview, 1619 Project, and then the traditional American historical worldview. They can't coexist. And so when those two different groups are writing articles on Wikipedia, it makes no sense. So, ultimately what ends up happening is you'll get, Vox.com, progressive outlet, will hire some college kid who, a better example would be the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast is a couple writers that have straight up made things up. And it's on the record now, historical record, straight up made up stuff. And I've actually reached out to them for comment and they just ignore it. So if you've got these news outlets writing fake news, garbage, and straight up saying, do not do an interview with the Proud Boys, then what is the record of history going to be if they specifically avoid figuring out who people are, what they believe, and what they're doing?
They're writing history. They're basically right in front of our eyes. They're writing history. And it makes me question a lot of things in the past, but that doesn't mean that we allow them to win. It doesn't mean that we should let them do it. Every retraction, again, and like you, I've sent the Daily Beast many retractions, and they just ignore my emails. But it's fine with me. I don't care. I don't need the Daily Beast. I don't need Facebook. I don't need Instagram. I don't need any of that to I'm an activist. Well, so I don't need none of that to organize. Maybe a lot of people do. I don't.
Well, what's happening now is they're banning people from banks. Like you, and from other technological services. There's conversations about how we're going to be moving towards, in the future, a carless society where individuals don't own cars. Cars are self-driving, and you have an app where you will say, here's where I need to go, and the car will come to your house, and you'll get in, and it'll drive itself.
Don't we have that already?
We have a service where a driver can come and pick you up. Yeah, so if you get banned from all of these services, and they're all private, then it's only a matter of time before you're locked out, as it were.
Human rights, transportation, finance.
Access to the internet and the use of its services. Mm-hmm. If you're banned from, a bunch of these services and they eventually become the only way to do things, then you're out. They've cut you out of society. Mm-hmm. This is why I've always been pro-regulation. I'm in favor of the government regulating these big corporations. It's always been the liberals who have been in favor of regulating corporations when they started infringing upon the commons.
Until Daddy Trump came in.
Now they're cheering for it.
Yep.
That's a nightmare dystopia, man. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.